So you really think the administration, Trump administration, really want to use a question about territory of Ukraine with Russians?
Right now, we have no idea what they're talking about. What they were talking about originally is a 30-day ceasefire. If Putin had agreed to that ceasefire, we would already have been past the 30 days. This is how long Russia has refused to work with the United States, how long Russia has embarrassed the president of the United States by not only refusing to work with him, but also putting out statements that are in contrast to the White House statements about what they discussed. So whatever is proposed here is simply going to be the opening talking point between Russia and President Trump. And unfortunately for President Trump, Russia doesn't seem to be doing anything to demonstrate that it wants to come to an end of this war.
Okay, the US didn't support a G7 statement about the Russian attack on Sumy. Bloomberg says it's because they want to keep talking to Moscow, maybe because Trump is afraid to lose a peace deal. Do you think he's showing too much fear, and could Russia use that against him?
Very much showing fear. He has not shown anything in terms of being strong with Russia. Since the beginning of this conversation, when Trump proposed a meeting with Ukrainian representatives, a meeting with Russian representatives, we have had the analogy of using a carrot and sticks to move a stubborn mule. From Ukraine's side, we have only experienced the stick from the United States. We have experienced the suspension of aid, the suspension of intelligence sharing, harsh words of rhetoric from the president and his advisors and the cabinet of ministers throughout this entire process, only against Ukraine. It seems that Russia is getting all the carrots. Russia gets all the praise, even in the tweet that went out just a few hours ago, complaining about President Zelenskyy from President Trump. He was complaining that President Zelenskyy and Mr. Biden started this war, and he praised President Putin for respecting him. So it seems that the only praise goes to Russia, which is the enemy, which is the war criminal, which is the side making genocide. And unfortunately for Ukraine right now, we have only experienced pressure from the United States.
I have one more question. Trump refused to condemn Russia after the missile strike on Sumy. Do you think this is kind of position damages democracy? How democracy really feel?
Well, right now he's damaging his alliances around the world, especially with the democratic world, especially with the Western Atlantic Alliance, putting tariffs on all of his allied nations, making their economies suffer, and not being very clear about how to get our way out of this. This was, frankly, a declaration of war against our allies, an economic war. It's not even clear if this is allowed in the various free trade as well as NATO agreements we have with these countries. So from one side, he's attacking our allies, including his closest allies, which are Mexico and Canada. At the same time, he is elevating autocracies and dictatorships like Russia, like Iran, and even working with an autocrat like the president of El Salvador.
The dollar just dropped to a 6-month low because of Trump's new tariff policy. What are people in the US saying about it? How do they feel? Do they understand what Trump is doing? Because polls show mixed results, especially now with protests and a small economic crisis going on.
Right. The valuation that has plagued the dollar, that has plagued the Treasury bond. There are many issues economically, but first and foremost, Trump's actions wiped out over $10 trillion of investments in the stock market, in long-term investments, in people's retirement savings. This won't be felt right away. It'll be felt right away for some people who may have planned to retire this year and just simply live on their pensions. But other than that, the price increases that we're all expecting, it's a little confusing because technically the president doesn't have the constitutional power to implement these tariffs. He is announcing them, but it's on Congress to implement tariffs. So we're not quite sure if any of these have been paid by the importers. This is who pays the tariffs. It's the importing companies, and then they pass along that to their customers. Some prices have gone up marginally, but this is in advance of being charged those tariffs, which again, we have no evidence that any tariffs have actually been charged to any goods that have come from overseas. We will first and foremost be experiencing that as a country in as far as food products. We have daily food shipments from South America, from warmer climates. These include fruits and vegetables, as well as coffee beans, which, as anybody who knows an American knows, Americans can't live without their coffee, which comes in daily on barges from across the world. So once regular Americans start feeling that on a regular basis at the store, we might get a bigger, louder reaction. But as of this point, many Americans, unless they have savings for retirement, they haven't felt a loss of dollar value as of yet.
Okay, let's explore that idea a bit more. China is now trying to unite Europe, Japan, and South Korea to push back against Trump and his tariffs. That's what Reuters says. Can we say that Trump's actions are turning against him? Because now China wants to build new economic alliances with countries that are also hurt by these tariffs.
Right. This has been what Trump has done for both of his administrations. In his first administration, he canceled or walked America out of a Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have allied all countries around the Pacific Rim against China so they could utilize their buying power together, as opposed to a country as powerful as China. Once again, now he is starting an economic war with all of the United States allies at the same time that he wants to do an economic trade war with China. China, as we know, is fully prepared to have their own population suffer, not so much the United States. There are various factors involved here, including the amounts of United States Treasury bonds that China and its satellite countries have purchased in order to control the bond market. We just saw this in the last week. This is what scared President Trump into stopping the European tariffs or pausing them for 90 days, which was the sudden sell-off of Treasury bonds, Treasury notes by China, Japan, and other countries. So there's a lot of means of manipulation. We also know that even though China is only responsible for about 10% of pharmaceuticals, drug supplies in the United States, the kind of drugs that they produce are at the very low end. And so the elimination of them from the American drug market, which is the next step of President Trump's tariffs, this would cause an absolute cratering, loss of basic antibiotic drugs that come from China. And the higher end drugs are still manufactured mostly in the United States as well as Europe. So there's a lot of complicated ways that China could, imposing tariffs on China could affect us. We are just seeing the beginning of the retaliation by China.
Do you think the situation between the US and China will calm down anytime soon? What are people in the US saying about it?
Well, mostly it's worried about any pricing. We know that the proposed tariffs of 145% from the American side, and on the other side, China has proposed nearly 100% tariffs on many goods, and we know that America's farmers will be the first ones hit with this. Many soybeans, many agricultural products are sold from America's farmers to China, and this is what was affected during President Trump's first term when he started a trade war with China back then. and there really was no solution for it. They came down at a table and got to a negotiation over a year later. But in the intervening time, America's farms had to be subsidized by the federal government to the tune of several $billion. This was not a cheap trade war. If the federal government hadn't bailed out the large farming corporations in the Midwest, we would see a complete dissolvement, collapse of America's agricultural industry.